Today is what? I think March 14th, 2018. This is a story. I will let you listen, but this is a story about he was once a street kid. Oh, excuse me. This is a story about, I had a call coming in. He was once a street kid, and then on his verge of suicide, somebody took him in, and he went to church, gave his life to Christ. He became very wealthy, and along the line some street kids stole his cars, and then he remembered how he too was once a street kid, and he sold his businesses and began to take the kids off the street and brought them into his own house. He didn't build an orphanage, though he was a millionaire, he could photo, but he didn't build an orphanage to put them there somewhere and then use his wealth to take care of them. He brought them into his house or into his mansion, wherever he was, him and his wife. He started with 50, with 100, with 200 to 1,000 to God knows how many now. And there's a movie called Mully, Mully, about his life story. My question is, how many GOs and pastors and apostles and bishops and pope and all of those, my father in the Lord, how many of them will actually take kids off the streets and bring them into the home? Better yet, how many of those pastors and apostles and prophets and pastors' wives will actually even allow their members to enter into their own homes? Most of them wouldn't even open their homes to their members. Forget about the street kids. That you're just asking for too much. The love, the compassion, the mercy, the generosity that this man, he's a Christian, that this man having his heart is more than all, you put all the pastors in Africa, the love they have in their heart equals 1% than what this man alone have in his heart. Because the way he display his love to these homeless and street kids is exactly how Jesus would. After he does that, does he need to go and preach to them about the love of Christ? Brought street kids into his own house. He didn't build an orphanage. I'm not saying it's a bad thing also to build an orphanage and put them there, but he could have very well done that because he had the resources to do so, but he didn't. What did he do? He brought him into his own house, and him and his wife cook, and he quit his job, resigned from his businesses. I think sold most of his businesses, used the resources to take these kids off the street, feed them, and educate them over thousands and thousands. Isn't that what the pastor should be doing? Meanwhile, this man didn't collect any tithes and offering. He's not even a pastor. He's a regular Christian like you and I. So he didn't collect any tithes and offering, but he took care of the street kids. It grew from 100 to 200 to 2,000 to how many, maybe 100,000, and who knows. This is what he did. Isn't this what the pastor's supposed to do with the tithes and offerings? The tithes, the offerings, the Thanksgiving offering, the Shiloh sacrifice, the firstborn, the first fruits, all these offerings they collect. What have they done with it? If they were using that funds to do what this man is doing, ain't nobody will talk about them. Nobody will talk about them forever. If they were using the funds that they are collecting from the poor, wretched people, if the funds were being used for the purpose intended, nobody will make a video to criticize their doctrines and their teaching and their lifestyle. But because they are using the people's money to fund their lavish lifestyle, and then these gullible, naive people will come to my YouTube channel and say, touch not God's anointed, and that's my father in the law. Okay, please excuse me. Answer my question. When last you talked to your father? Because you call them my father in the law, my mother in the law, and my daddy. When last you pick up the phone to call your daddy? Or better yet, when last your daddy pick up the phone to talk to you? When last your daddy invited you to dinner? When last did you invite him to dinner? Do you even have your daddy or your mommy or your father in the law? Do you have the phone number? Can you text them right now? Can you call them right now and they pick up? Do they even know your name? Do they acknowledge your existence? Have they any clue you exist? But you come and defending them tooth and nails. People who don't even know your name, they don't even know you exist. They don't even acknowledge your existence. You say it's your father? Call your father now. When last you call your father? If you're struggling today, need help to pay your rent or your light bill or your phone bill, can you pick up the phone and call your father in the law? Excuse me.
Greatly inspired me. I'm talking about Charles Mully from Kenya. Shout out to my Kenyan people. This man's story has been made into a movie, and if you're yet to watch the Mully movie, please, you can rent this movie or you can buy it on YouTube or Google Play under movies and TV. But you know, this story is so inspiring that it can change your perception about acquiring wealth or living the successful life. Honestly, I cried while I was watching this movie, and without telling you everything, because I want you to watch it, this man came from nothing, and his parents abandoned him at the age of 6, and for 10 years he begged for food on the street. He slept on the street. The day that this man decided that he would commit suicide, someone invited him to church and he decided to go just to see. But that day he heard a message of hope, that there is a purpose for his life. And so he gave his life to Christ that day, and he decided to walk for 3.5 days. He walked on his feet until he got to a city, the city of Nairobi, where he found a good Samaritan that took him in. He started working, as a layman. He was later able to buy a taxi, and then another taxi, and then another one. And this man became a multi-millionaire. He married a beautiful woman. He had 8 children and traveled the world. Now, this was not included in the movie, but he told us that when he became wealthy, he went and found his parents who abandoned him at the age of 6 because they thought he would die. He was always getting sick, and he brought them into the city and built them a house. He built them a house, as in he forgave them, including...
Did you hear that? His parents threw him away in the street because he was a very sickly child and they just thought he was going to die. But God had a destiny and a plan for this young man's life. And through his tragedy, the stuff that was supposed to destroy him, he's using his story to save other street kids. Isn't this a rampant story all over Africa? You go in the street, you see street kids, whether they're 1 year old, 5 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old, when they grew up in the streets. But yeah, you have that same continent, Africa, pastors boasting on the pulpit, they've been flying private jets since 30 years. How can you make such a boast when there are kids in the street? How can you make such a boast and really go to sleep and say that statement you made was okay? It was justifiable in your eyes, that Jesus will hear that statement and he'll be proud of you. How can you do that? And the very parents who abandoned him in the streets to die, he forgave them without even asking him for forgiveness, and he went back, brought them from the village and purchased them homes. Even the family member who didn't give him food, hoping he would die, he bought homes for each and every one of them. Is this not a display of true love and compassion from Christ? Why is this kind of story not being addressed on the pulpit of Africa? But every other week they're mounting the demonic pulpit and they're telling you about tithe. If you don't pay, you be cursed. And you come against the church, God will grind you as dust. And then the stupid disciple comes and say, don't touch God's anointed. And that's my father in the Lord. That's my mother in the Lord. Can you call your father right now if you need money for your rent and your father will send it? What's your father's birthday? Does your father know your birthday? All this is my father in it. Does he know your birthday? Does he know your address? When last you went and had dinner with your father? Can you pick up the phone right now and talk to your father-in-law and your daddy G and your mommy and your apostle and your bishop and Reverend Dr. Mrs.? Can you call them up? Do they know your name? Do they know how you eat and sleep every day? Have they any clue who you are? Please stop idolizing these people who you call father-in-law. Stop this madness, insanity. Wake up from your stupidity.
Family on vacation in America, Europe, Asia. He owned all kinds of companies and properties. He was changing cars like every few weeks. Until one day, his life was changed because street kids stole his car. And that reminded him of how he used to live on the street as well, begging for food. And he couldn't get it out of his mind for days. And do you know that because of that incident, this man sold all his businesses, he stopped working, and he started bringing in street kids, fatherless children.
Did you hear that? Street kids stole his car. What did he do? It reminded him of once upon a time when he too was a street kid. If those same street kids have stolen some of these Nigerian Christians' cars, those who come to my page and say, touch not God's anointed, those who defend their father and the daddy in the law, if somebody stole their car, you know what they'll do? They will go to the shrine they call church, for their witch doctor they call pastor, to issue a curse on whoever stole their car, isn't it? That's exactly what it will do. But it will come to your page and say, touch not God's anointed. They come to my page, they issue you curse, or you will die. Really? Like God will answer the prayer of a witch? Do you think God will answer your prayer? You are a witch or a witch doctor. You only practicing what you mimicking and repeating what you hear from your father-in-law, because all they do is mount their pulpit and issue curses. So you sit under them and you call them your father. So what do? Kids have to copy what their father do. They come to people's page and say, I curse you, and the wrath of God is coming. And God will answer the prayer of a witch under what circumstances? But do you see what the man did? How many of you Christians in Nigeria who defending your father-in-law day and night? How many of you, if somebody stole your car, how many of you will begin to use that as an instrument and a reason to reach out to those very people who stole your car, the street kids? No, you will go to your church or your shrine. I don't call them church no more. You'll go to your shrine and speak to your witch doctors who you call pastor, and you fast and pray for 50 days and issue a curse for the person who stole your car to fall down and die. You guys are just as wicked as the devil himself. The day of judgment is upon you and all your so-called father and mother in the law. If you don't repent from your wickedness, you will encounter God's vengeance and wrath very soon in this season. Watch it.
Because street kids stole his car, and that reminded him of how he used to live on the street as well, begging for food, and he couldn't get it out of his mind for days. And you know that because of that incident, this man sold all his businesses, he stopped working, and he started bringing in street kids, fatherless children, abandoned children into his own house. He didn't start an orphanage or send them money or give them scholarship. He wanted to give them something that he didn't have when he was growing up, which is a father figure. So he became their father. And from taking in 2 children, they became 4, they became 10, 30, 50 children in his house. And every night he will go to the slums of Kiberia and he will find a child that was left to die and he will bring them home. He and his wife took care of these children. They gave them food, they put them in school, they bought them clothes, they taught them all kinds of vocational jobs such as sewing, painting. Some of these children were child prostitutes, some were drug addicts, but he brought them all in. Later they became 100. They became more than 100. And the house became too small for them, so they had to move to a countryside where they had more land. And then they got to 1,000 children. So they built them schools because he could no longer pay school fees of so many children. So they built their own primary school, their own secondary school. And do you know that their school is ranked one of the best in all of Kenya? And every year their school is rated as the best in their district. They even teach them karate. Can you believe that their karate team went to represent Kenya at the African Olympics? Honestly, this family went all out, and huge kudos to their 8 children. I cannot imagine that it was easy. And huge kudos to his wife for accommodating her husband. So they've been doing this now for 29 years. So 29 years. And can you believe that they have successfully raised more than 13,000 children?
Can you imagine this man been doing this generosity and acts of kindness for 29 years? Whereas somebody who called himself an apostle of prosperity, boasting that he'd been driving private jet for 30 years. You imagine the difference. This man's not a pastor. This man's an ordinary Christian like you and I. But he's been doing this acts of generosity for 29 years without collecting your tithes and offerings. Another one who collects your tithes and offerings mount to his pulpit and tell you he's been flying private jets and before you was born. You see the difference? A pastor boasting that he's been flying private jet before you was born. A regular ordinary Christian been taking care of the street kids, putting them through school, feed them, house them, clothe them, medical attention, put them through colleges and university, doctorate degree for 29 years. And he's not even boasting about it. Somebody else is telling his story. He's not even on TV bragging about his story. But yet, the dumb sheep of those apostles and them will come to my page and say, touch now God's anointed, and they have done so much good. With the resources and the money they have robbed from the continent of Africa, those pastors should do 10 times better than what this man does. They should be doing 10 times better, because you put all the resources of all the pastors in Africa, I'm sure is enough to take the continent of Africa out of poverty. The churches in Africa, especially the Pentecostal churches, they have bankrupt Africa. It is time for Africa to bankrupt the Pentecostal witchcraft churches or the Pentecostal shrines that call themselves church.
Talking about professionals, businessmen, businesswomen, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs. Some of these children studied abroad. Some of them even live abroad now. I'm just saying that their lives have forever been changed. And you know what? They all call him daddy because he was the father that they knew. They presently have about 3,000 children that they are taking care of right now, even as we speak. They have their own choir, by the way, and sometimes they will fly them to Canada or other parts of the world to perform. But it wasn't easy. When when you watch that movie, you would cry. There were times that they had no food. There were times that they had no money. There were times that they had no water, especially when they moved into the new location. But they kept going. People laughed at him. His friends said that he was crazy. Even his church abandoned him. They were telling him, it's okay to help from afar. You don't have to bring them into your house. Please watch that movie if you can. Honestly, it's life changing. We need more people like Muli. The whole time I was watching that movie, I kept thinking about so many wealthy people that we have in my country, Nigeria, and the lives that they could change instead of buying private jets and preaching about prosperity. Honestly, I don't think that Muli has to preach to any of these children because, action speaks louder than voice. Nobody can fight real love. Above all, this man is the definition of humility. I mean, he doesn't even know what he has done. He was so humble, and in the movie, he decided that he would not depend on donors because he remembered what it was like when he used to beg. He said the beggar has no choice. He said he wanted this work to be self-sustained, and with the help of these children that he has adopted, they started farms, and they were able to produce more than they need, such that they are now a major supplier of food produce in Kenya. For real, if you think a lot about making it in life, being successful, please watch this movie because suddenly you would realize that even though you are not where you want to be, there are people that are not as fortunate as you, and you can make a difference in somebody's life. You don't have to be Muli. You don't have to bring in thousands of children, but maybe there is a child out there that you're the only one that can help, or maybe there's a family out there that because of proximity to them, you're the one that can help them. I'm just saying, watching this movie would inspire you to touch other lives.
This is not an orphanage.
Some of us were orphans,
but now we have a home.
I used to go to bed hungry.
Change is possible.
Restoration is possible.
With God, all things are possible.
Right here, I have learned this is true.
Welcome to my home.
Welcome to my family.
The biggest family in the world.
You guys know I don't know much. Guess what? I'm just keeping it real.
I hope all the daddy GOs, the apostle, the bishop, the pope, the Oyakelome, Orisu Jefo, Adafarasin, Sam Adeyemi, Oyelepo, Olukoya, Adeboye, Suleiman, Okafor. There's so many names. Please share this video with them. I beg you, let it get to them. Let them see how you actually preach the gospel. St. Francis of Assisi said to his disciple before he died, he said, go and preach the gospel to the villages. Only use words when necessary. Well, this man demonstrated how you can preach the gospel without using words. Whereas your daddy GO or aka witch doctors mount the pulpit, enter the shrines, and all day they issuing curses and they telling you to bring your money so God can bless you. Hello, they're telling you lies to rob you blind. You're still dumb. The scales of religious blindness, ignorance, stupidity, lack of discernment, laziness is still holding your mind captive that you have not awakened. That all these years you've been sowing, who's been reaping? The one you sow into is the one reaping. All these years you sacrifice in this. What have you gotten for it? What can you show for it? That is tangible, that is everlasting, what can you show of all these years? It's time for those shrines to be empty. You call them church, I call them shrines. It's time for these shrines to be empty out. Let every Christian decide to go to the streets right now and begin to find somebody poor, somebody who's hungry, somebody who needs food, somebody who needs shoes, somebody who needs clothes, somebody who needs to go to school, somebody who needs maybe a market woman selling something in the streets. Maybe she just needs $50 to invest in her business or give her $50. Or some child needs shoes, need food. Empty. Let all those shrines be empty out today. I know you call them church, but let all those shrines be empty out and let every one of us go to the streets wherever you are in the world and begin to do something in Jesus' name. Thank you.